I remember so clearly the feeling that I had when we brought our first daughter home from the hospital. My wife and I are totally exhausted. We've been up for a couple of days and we've got this tiny human. And I mean, she was tiny. She was like 5 pounds and a couple of ounces. She was so tiny that we came home and the diapers that we had bought for her didn't fit. They were way too big. So I'm in the drugstore pharmacy looking for the tiniest diapers that I can find. And I just get totally overwhelmed. And I get overwhelmed with this feeling that is like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And now fast forward a couple of years and we've got 3 girls and each of them is completely different. I kind of thought with the second one coming along, it's like, okay, we've been through this before. I kind of know what we're doing. But she's an absolute firecracker. She's full of passion. She's full of life. And it was like, oh my gosh, total overwhelm. I have no idea what I'm doing. Again, the same feeling. I have no idea what I'm doing. And then the third one comes along. I'm going, okay, you know what? Third one, we should have this a little bit more figured out. But she loves to climb everything. And now it's just a matter of keeping this child alive every day, which my wife does an amazing job. And it's like, oh my gosh, we have no idea what we're doing. The first 2 didn't climb anything. Why does the third one seem to want to climb onto the kitchen counters before she's 1 year old? And that brings me to one of my rules for being a good father. And that's to be willing to learn. Be willing to learn about my kids individually and their needs and wants and how I can best support them. Be willing to learn about parenting. Being willing to learn and know that it's not uncommon to not have it all figured out. In fact, that's the norm. Because let's be honest, parenting is a lot like that Mike Tyson quote where he says, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. That's what it's like to have kids. You can read the baby books and the parenting books, but until you're standing there holding that tiny human, it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you're just trying to get them to go to sleep and you're going, oh my gosh, what happened? You don't know. Or when my older daughter comes up to us and says, hey, how does the baby get out of mommy's tummy? And I say, you know what? That's a question for your mother. Every day is a new adventure with kids, full of new blessings and new challenges. And it seems like every time I think I've got something figured out, maybe about how to best support one of the kids or how to encourage them in the direction that we maybe want them to go, they grow and they change. And all of a sudden they stop responding to the different ways that we might have supported them in the past. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how do we do this? But it reminds me of a conversation that was had on a podcast between Carrie Newhoff and Craig Rochelle. And they talked about, the number one habit. What can the number one habit be in your life to support sort of all the other habits? And they said that the number one habit was the habit of learning. And you know what? That's very applicable, not obviously just in leadership or in work, but it's very applicable as being a father. And that's why I think it's the one rule that I wanted to outline today. It's being willing to learn. So a couple of ideas of how this could look for you in your life practically. The first one would be to stay present. I know it's challenging. When you've got a long day, I get it. I feel it. You're pulled in a million directions and you come home. But the best opportunity to learn is to learn from your kids themselves. And that requires being present. That requires getting down on the floor and playing with them when you know you've got a million emails or things calling at you and the phone doesn't stop binging. But the kids need you to be there and be present. That's how you can best learn how to support their needs. Start there. And the second practical takeaway is to look for good examples in your community, in your life. You've got them. I promise you that they're there. I've got an uncle who raised 3 daughters. My father-in-law raised 4 daughters, one of them being my wife. And they set this excellent example of what it means to raise great women. And there's probably examples, if it's not in your immediate family, there's examples in your community. There's examples in your church. You may need to seek them out, but they are there. We're not the first ones to walk down this road. I found that if I'm just willing to keep my head up and ask good questions, there's so many opportunities to learn. My younger brother-in-law doesn't have kids yet, but he often asks me, he says, hey Jason, how do you do it? How do you keep it all going with the 3 girls and the work and everything that you've got going on in life? And I say, hey, you know what, buddy? If you could just watch the girls for a little bit, I can go lie down and have a quick nap. I could probably give you a better answer when I wake up. And the third practical takeaway that I want to give you is to look for opportunities to learn in the format and the way that you like to learn. If you love to read, great. There are endless books. Look for great books that come highly recommended from people that you trust. If you like to listen to podcasts, great. Sprinkle in some parenting podcasts. Find some great people to listen to. They're out there. I guarantee it. If you love to read articles, watch YouTube videos, whatever that is, there's an endless amount of information that's potentially available to you, but don't force it. Find the source that works for you. Find, the way that you love to learn and then put parenting in there and learn about parenting in that space. And then you can take what you learn and see how it fits with your family because parenting is nuanced. Each of my kids is different. Each of your kids is different. It's a lot like leadership. I don't serve the people on my team at work the same way. I don't serve them each the same. They're each different. They each have individual needs and individual strengths that I like to work with so that we can put the best foot forward. It's the same thing with a family. You got to find the strengths of your kids, find the strengths of them and how you can best support them. So as a father, I know that you want to put your best foot forward. I know that you want to be a great dad, and I'm sure that you're already headed on that road in that direction. We want to be a great example. I want my children to know Jesus and have a relationship with him. I want them to be able to stand on my shoulders and go after everything that God has for them and the impact that God wants to have in and through their life. With all of these great things in front of us, let's just be willing to learn.